she is very thankful. We've reversed all of that, and I talked her into all that, and I'm very thankful she didn't just ditch me and go to another clinic that would have given her more lip filler.
Welcome to the Beauty Talk podcast, where we feature how the best medical practitioners help their patients to look better, younger, and healthier. Now, enjoy the show, and here's your host.
Daniel Gao here. I'm the host of Beauty Talk, where we feature the top medical practitioners in health and beauty, both inside and out. I have Lauren Pohle, known as Nurse Lauren, and she's also a nurse practitioner and the founder of Modern Med, a medical spa known for its natural, noticeable results and patient-centered care. With nearly a decade of experience in aesthetics and entrepreneurship, Lauren has grown Modern Med into a seven-figure business, launched a medical scrub line called LuMed, and trained hundreds of aspiring injectors. Her commitment to clinical excellence and supportive leadership has earned her the trust of both her loyal clientele and dedicated team. She is currently expanding into a second location, continuing her mission to raise the standard in the med spa industry. So Lauren, welcome and glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's dive right into it. How did you first get interested in aesthetics?
I actually went to have something done to my face at a doctor's office. And I was just a nurse working in the hospital at the time. And it was nurses that came in and actually did the injections. And I, just asked them, oh, you can be a nurse to do this. This is so awesome. Do you love doing this as a nurse? And they raved about it. So after I had that appointment at this doctor's office, I started researching, how do I become an aesthetics nurse? What licensing do I have? What business stuff do I have to have? And I just kind of figured it out all on my own. Still working in the hospital, got certified as a nurse injector, which I have found today there's no actual certification. It's just a lot of on-the-job training like everything else. And then later went on to get my nurse practitioner so that I could practice. We're still not allowed to practice independently in Missouri. So I have a collaborating physician that helps with my practice and oversees it. I'm still 100% owner, but yeah, that's how I got into it. I just went and got something done and loved it.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit about what that transition was like, going from being a nurse and now becoming that entrepreneur?
Yeah, so being a nurse, and especially going through nursing school, a Bachelor of Science of Nursing, we get no business education, no marketing education, no finance education. It's strictly science, clinical. We have to type a couple papers, but so that transition was tough. I had to teach myself a lot of things and do a lot of research and network with a lot of people to make sure I was going in the right direction. But for me, it was really fun. I now actually like the business side more than the clinical side. So I've cut back seeing patients in my med spa to focus on the business side of things. And I know you said I'm opening a second location, and I am. So I'm like, I really have to draw back a little bit if I'm going to be able to manage both. But yeah, it was a fun transition. I enjoy the business side and I enjoyed learning. I did have to hustle. I worked still in the hospital full time, almost up until I was able to have my first little salon loft, which was a 100 square feet room that I was doing injecting and seeing my patients, and I did every operation in the business, plus injecting patients. But it was a hustle. It was fun. I enjoyed it, and now I've seen like the business side more of things than the nursing side.
Yeah. Now, I mean, it's not easy building a business. I mean, it's good that you say that you had fun doing it, but you mentioned the hustle also. I mean, that's a big part of it. Growing a seven-figure business is not easy. I mean, I think the statistics are like only 3% of businesses in the US will ever hit seven figures. So, I mean, just by that alone, it's you already are in that elite top 3% just from that. So,
Yeah, and we hit that pretty early in my business, and I just remember being like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I'm used to a nurse salary, and now I'm managing money, lots of money. So, but it's been fun. And my parents tell me I've always been an entrepreneur. They said even when I was younger, I was having the kids in my neighborhood do dance camps and paying me money so I could teach them. So they knew that this would be the outcome of something someday. But why I went into nursing, I don't know, but it led me here, so I can't complain.
you just had to take one step before you got to your ultimate step.
Yep. Yep.
Now, Lauren, could you discuss some of the most common treatments that your patients and your clients come to you for? And also, why do you think that they're so popular?
Yeah, I started with doing Botox for my clients, filler, Sculptra. We have lasers at Modern Med. We have estheticians that do facials, microneedling, laser hair removal, chemical peels. We pretty much do it all. I even have a nurse practitioner that's doing hormone replacement. But this industry is really booming, and I feel like a lot of people are in the preventative. They're looking for prevention, aging prevention, health prevention, wellness measures. And so that's really trendy right now on social media. And then plus you have these celebrities that everyone on the internet looks after, and they're all doing these services. So that's why I think it's such a popular thing and why my business is such a booming business.
Mhm. And that's a great segue. I want to talk about kind of the new and emerging treatments that you're particularly excited about. You mentioned HRT. I'm starting to see people get more into regenerative medicine, functional medicine, natural medicine, all those kinds of things. So, I guess, where did you start to see that shift in your practice where people are looking for these types of things? Was it just something that you started to notice and you just kind of picked up on that wave?
Yeah, the aesthetic industry is constantly changing, so you have to be able to adapt. So it was like 1 minute we're doing Botox, and the next minute Sculpture comes out, and now everyone wants the more natural, they call it a filler, even though Sculpture is not a filler, but everyone wants the more natural filler. And then now we need to look at the inside. So what's going on inside of our body, because that's going to affect our appearance and our mood and our energy. And so it's becoming, I guess, all streamlined into the med spa space, and I'm here for it.
hmm Are you finding that these new treatments are a net positive for the industry, or do you think that there's some of them that's kind of iffy, or like what's your thoughts on it?
I love them, and I can't say that I've done all the wellness side of things. I'm only 33 years old, so I'm still deciding, if I'm ready for HRT or not yet. But I did have our nurse practitioner draw our blood and look at my labs, and I did attend the courses and the certification, so I am certified and all that. And I really believe in it. And the patients that have had HRT and they've been pelleted or they're on testosterone, they come back and they're like, I can't live without it. I love it. And so just to be able to bundle that in with their aesthetics treatments all in one spot, it's making people very happy. And then obviously word of mouth gets out from those patients and they tell their husband or their significant other or their friends what they're doing. And I do think that is going to be growth over time. There's going to be a lot of new things in this wellness space. Now, I'm one of those people where I do kind of like to try things before we launch it or have somebody try it before we launch it. So we don't just like, oh, it's the hot topic, let's offer it, because these things do cost a lot of money and it's a big investment to bring something on, especially if it's a device. But so far, everything that we've brought on has been a huge success in the practice.
Okay. And do you think that this trend is going to keep going in this direction, looking more for the wellness, looking more for the natural look?
Yes, I do. Or at least my practice, we've dissolved a bunch of filler in patients' faces, and they're, going for more natural. They're reversing their lips. People who've had the surgical butt implants, they're getting those reduced and removed. And I think the wellness space, which is even like methylene blue, NAD, things like that's what's trending right now. And so
Mhm.
I think that's just going to keep growing. I think Botox and filler are still going to be there. I just don't know. I think we saw a drop in filler over the last 2 years because there was a growth in all these regenerative things and even collagen stimulating things like radio frequency microneedling. I mean, we sold a ton of radio frequency microneedling packages over the last 2 years because everyone wants collagen stimulation and skin repair from the inside out.
Now, for people who don't know what regenerative medicine is, could you explain to it kind of like if you explain it to a fifth grader, like what is regenerative medicine and why is it relevant in the aesthetic space?
I just like to say that everything starts, including diseases, from the inside out. And that is also, so it's your health, your fitness, But then also sometimes your outside pollutants like the sun and just air quality and where you work, things like that can also have an effect on your overall health. So I just think of it as like the overall package, and it has to start from somewhere.
Got it. Now, Lauren, I want to dive a little bit more into your practice and really what differentiates your practice from others in the industry. Now, you have a solid reputation in your community. So, how did you build that solid reputation and at the same time win the trust of your patients in the time that you've had your practice?
Yeah, I think overall my aesthetic has always been very natural. Even when big lips were a thing, I was not afraid to tell a patient no. And so my patients used to tell their friends, like, go to Nurse Lauren. She'll tell you what you need. She'll tell you, yes, you need it or no, you don't. She's not going to rip you off or waste your money. And so it was just like, I was very ethical in my treatments and my plans, and patients trust me. And then they told their friends about me. And I'm still to this day, if you don't need it, I'm going to tell you no. I'm not going to tell you to do something because, I could make money from it, which a lot of practices or practitioners are unfortunately doing.
Yeah, because I mean, people look at it sometimes from a sales perspective, like, oh, I just want to close, want to close, want to close, want to grow the business. But it is a little bit more rare where the practitioner and the business owner, it's like, no, like you're looking at it more like you're a consultant. You're giving them what is the best advice for their particular situation, even though it may be at odds with maybe your business financially, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and I call it just education. Like I'm educated as a nurse practitioner and in aesthetics on things that will work and the order, that we need to do things. And so I need to educate my patients on like why I'm doing these things or why I'm not doing these things. And so if they do leave my practice or they go somewhere else, at least they're educated when some other practitioner tries to tell them that they need something that they don't.
Okay, got it. Now, you grew your practice a lot through social media. So could you talk a little bit of how you were able to do that? Because I mean, as we kind of talked about before, starting a business is not easy, and growing a business is even harder. But how were you able to do that using social media?
Yeah, so I think I got into social media before it was extremely popular. I started on Instagram in like 2016, 2017, and I was posting, I was promoting, and I remember people talking poorly about me and that like she's always on social media. All she does is post, all she does is do this. And now I'm like, hey, look, it did something because I got
It worked.
yeah, it worked. I got a lot of followers. I have a great business. So I always say visibility is opportunity. And if you're not going to be visible on social media or in the public eye somehow, then no one's going to know about you. And so you have to show your work. You have to educate. You have to look like you're the expert on there, even though you should be the expert. But yeah, it came back to do great things for me.
Okay. And even as you throughout that growth, you needed the team to also support you. And hiring, managing, growing a good team is never easy. I think if you talk to most business owners, you ask them, what's your biggest assets? Their people. What's your biggest headache? It's also the people. So how did you manage and grow your team? Like, what was your philosophy? How did you do it? Because I'm really curious on you have a successful business, how you were able to do that, because that's a really tough piece to get down.
Yeah, so obviously we had our struggles too, just like every new business has. You kind of hire anyone and everyone you can, some friends, some families, and then it's kind of like I call that step two. So step one is like it's just you, you're rocking and rolling, but you need help. Step two, you get anyone and everyone you can. You don't really have your processes and your protocols and procedures set up yet. And then step three is like, oh shoot. I need to backtrack and get processes and procedures and everything in line because the people I just hired or bringing on aren't doing things the way that I do them or how I would want them to do that. So then, that happened to us. And then I got my crap together, got my business together. And then now we have a whole process when I go to hire new teammates and onboard them. And we have a handbook and we have protocols and procedures. And it's a very streamlined process. And I'll say I've learned a lot in my interview processes too. It used to just be one interview and a yes or a no. And now it's like a good three interviews. I call references. I look people up on social media to make sure that they fit my brand and they fit, it's a person that fits modern med.
Got it. Now, I want to go back to your treatments. You have a lot of patients coming to you on a daily basis. So I'm sure you've heard a lot of misconceptions about the industry, about treatment. So would you mind sharing a couple common misconceptions that you hear all the time about the treatment you provide?
Oh yeah. So like everyone says, oh, don't do Botox, you're gonna look fake or frozen. And so that's one I disagree with. You can do Botox and it will smooth your skin. It prevents you from getting wrinkles and fine lines. If you don't overdo the Botox, you should just look like yourself, but better. And that's the same with filler. Everyone says, oh, don't do filler, it's fake, or you don't need filler yet. And there's a difference from you don't need filler versus we're doing filler to just put little fine tweaks into certain areas of the face to contour, to have the light bounce off the cheek at a different spot. And so I think when I'm reading comments on social media or Facebook, and it's like, she's so young, why is she doing that already? And yes, there's too young, and social media again has blown up this industry. So I do try to get, or I do get some 18-year-olds that try to come in. I tell them no, like if you don't need it, you don't need it. But I started getting Botox and filler in my 20s. And if I showed you a picture of what I looked like then versus now, it's amazing the transformation you can make. And I look younger now than I did when I was 23.
Hmm.
So I would say that's the misconception is people just always jump straight to Botox and filler. You're gonna look fake. You're not gonna look like yourself. And I think all of my patients that have been getting it and getting it appropriately actually look better now than they did when they first came in to see me.
Okay, so you're turning the clock back for them.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, now, Lauren, I'm curious, when people think about medicine, procedures, treatments, what comes to mind is typically there's a process, there's a procedure, there's a step by step. But what role do you believe creativity plays in how you approach your patient care and the treatments that you provide?
Creativity, well, I would say more artistry. So being a practitioner, you can be a good practitioner, you can learn all the things, but you have to be creative and have some type of artistic eye when you're doing aesthetic treatments. And so there's, sometimes where people come in and they're very asymmetrical and we're trying to make them symmetrical, or we're trying to work with acne and help scars and fine lines and wrinkles. And so you do have to get creative on which services you're going to do and in what order you're going to do to give them the best outcome. But then also when you're doing the filler and tox, there's a little bit of an art behind it. And the providers that are more artistic or have an artistic eye, I feel like, are better in the aesthetic industry.
Mhm. Do you believe that someone that has very good medical skills but is very weak or has little to no artistry or creativity can be successful in the aesthetic industry?
Well, an example is my husband is an ER physician,
Mhm.
and I have tried to get him to inject with me and do Botox and do filler, and he can't do it. He has no artistic eye, and he's not doesn't have the steady hand and just the maybe he just doesn't like aesthetic medicine, but I don't think it's for everyone. And I think there's a lot of practitioners that go into aesthetic medicine and they actually hate it because they stop using their brain in a different way than you do in the hospital when you or are a provider, working in the ER, the ICU.
Got it. Okay. Now, Lauren, I'm sure that throughout your experience, you've run into some particularly challenging cases that have come across your door. Is there one story in particular that really comes to mind that really stands out of a really tough case and how you were able to get them a successful outcome in the end?
Yeah. So a couple years ago, I had a patient come in that her lips were already like ones you would see on TV were botched on that show, and she wanted more lip filler, and we had to have a little come to Jesus therapy session for her to, tell her this isn't normal. Um, she was angry, mad that we wouldn't put more filler in. I had to talk her into reversing and then coming back 2 weeks later to reverse some more. So that means, the lips are slowly going down. And when you're used to the lips being this big on your face, that's a really hard for someone's brain to process that their lips are going to have to shrink for, a month before we can put filler in them. So I got good on her trusting side. I got her to reverse. I got her to come back and reverse. She was compliant. We filled her lips back up. And then after I filled them back up, she was like, well, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And so I had to show her the picture of, where she was and with her giant lips versus where we were and how much natural that looked. And then we just what I did was pull in some other people off the internet, some of the famous people that we know have had lip filler to show her like what normal is because her normal was the big giant lips. And anyway, she is still a client of mine today, and she is very thankful. We've reversed all of that, and I talked her into all that, and I'm very thankful she didn't just ditch me and go to another clinic that would have given her more lip filler. But I think those are the hardest cases, and aesthetic medicine or just people with a little bit of body dysmorphia or they got some injector did it got out of control in their practice with the filler and then that's their new normal. So they can't imagine not having big cheeks or not having full lips or not having a frozen plastered looking face.
I'm glad that you brought that up. That was something that I was going to bring up right after this was that body dysmorphia, for people who don't know, it's basically like they have a skewed view of how they view their own physical appearance. Do you believe that that's something that is relatively common within the aesthetic industry, or do you think that just it's not as common, but just it stands out a little bit more in this industry?
I think it's common in the aesthetic industry because the people that are coming into our business, they're constantly looking at their face, their body, even with the weight loss injections and Ozempic and all that now. I just think that everyone is so self-conscious of how they look. And we have actually a screening tool at Modern Med. It's a body dysmorphia screening tool that if we feel that somebody isn't going to be a good fit for our practice, we'll bring out this screening tool and then explain to them why we don't think, or why not, I don't necessarily say why you're not a good fit for the practice, but just let them know that our goals are not going to align. And then that's my way of, with my team of easily discharging somebody from our practice instead of treating them and trying to make them happy and having a potential headache down the line. But yeah, I do think it's a thing. I think it's better. I think it back when everyone was overfilling, it got a little bit out of control. I will say that I see less and less of body dysmorphia or people that I would run up that I would, in my head be screening or doing a consult with a client and be like, okay, they have something going on where they think they're supposed to look like this or they're supposed to have big cheeks. But it's definitely gotten better. But I wouldn't say it's completely gone from the industry.
And for the ones that do come in, I'm assuming that most of them end up not becoming clients because they just can't accept it. Or have you seen, I mean, give the great story of one who did, but how many would you say actually kind of appreciate it, understand it, and then start to make that change versus the ones that just, it's almost like they need a psychologist or a psychiatrist to try and resolve that issue?
Yeah, I would say it's about 50%. 50% of people that come in that, you tell them, no, you don't need any more, or no, we need to work on something else. They're accepting of it and then they thank you later. But then you have the people that come in and you tell them no and you try to explain and then they're not going to change and they're just med spa hoppers. So if they don't like what I'm going to tell them, they're going to run to the next clinic until somebody will give them what they want.
I see. Okay. Now, Lauren, I want to talk about modern med and really your vision for modern med. We talked about you having this successful practice. You're now opening up a second location, but what's your ultimate goal? What's like the ultimate vision for modern med?
I'm going to see how this second location goes. If I can handle it, I could see more locations in the future. Personally, I want to move from St. Louis to Florida, so I could see opening a practice down there, or that being my third, just so I can get out of St. Louis a little bit. If I keep opening up practices here, I'm never going to get out. So That's kind of my future goal. People have asked me before about selling it. I know that the equity companies, they're all into buying med spas right now, and I've had a couple emails from some, but like I said, I'm only 33, so I've got a lot of time left to
I think if
rest.
you sell it, you probably just open up another one in Florida anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Once you're an entrepreneur, you're always an entrepreneur. So I feel I would get bored if I didn't have anything to do. So if I sold it, like what I would work on the next thing, or maybe my scrub line, Lumed, work on that a little bit.
Okay, I want to touch on that a little bit. So, kind of what gave you the idea of setting up this company, LuMed? Kind of what makes it different? If you just talk a little bit more about this business.
Yeah, so when I worked in the hospital, I wore scrubs and I wore a very popular brand of scrubs and I hated them. I was like, they're not comfortable, they don't stretch, I can't bend over and empty drains or help patients do the things I needed to do as a nurse. And so, I was already in the aesthetic industry helping out faces. I was like, why not get into the fashion industry and try to create something that's functional, comfortable, stylish? And so, got with a design team and we created LuMed. And we sold to almost every US state. And it's still selling, doing great. I've just been so tied up with Modern Med that I probably need to hire my own team for LuMed and get salespeople into the areas and going into clinics and door to door to really get it launched even more, which is also a goal for the rest of this year and even next year.
True entrepreneur at heart.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Lauren, I have one last question for you, but before I ask it, I do want to point people to your websites, which is modernmedstl.com, nurselaurenstl.com, and shoplumed.com.
Yes.
Now, last question is, what would be your most important piece of advice you could give to someone who's thinking about getting some type of aesthetic procedure or treatment done, but isn't sure which provider to choose?
Yeah, I would say do your research. So just like you would if you were going to go out to eat or go to a new restaurant, what are you going to do? You're going to look them up on the internet. You're going to read Google Yelp reviews. You're going to look at their Instagram page. You're going to see what the vibe is, what the aesthetic is. When you're looking for an aesthetic provider, you need to look at what she looks like or what he looks like, because if they look not what you want to look like, or if they have big lips, big cheeks, then you're probably going to come out with big lips and big cheeks. So just the biggest thing is do your research, find somebody that aligns with what you're looking for, and then make sure they're qualified and certified and educated and not just somebody that's doing this on the side for extra money.
On it. Well, there you have it, Lauren sharing her expertise. So, Lauren, where can people contact you in your practice?
At my practice, it can be Lauren at modernmedstl.com.
Okay, got it. Well, Lauren, thanks for being on the show. Great having you here and sharing your message.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Beauty Talk podcast. Any questions, please contact the practice directly with the contact information provided during the show. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.